Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H event space. You're tuned into the Art of Motion hosted by Sony. And here I am doing my best to keep a straight face. I can't look at you, Monica. You're making me laugh. My God, I felt like I was holding my breath for the last 5 minutes. Welcome,
Well,
welcome.
I love Danny because he's always like, we'll hold radio silent. And then I'm always like, but what's the other kind of silent? Like radio silent? Like, is there another kind of silent? Like, just tell us to shut up for the next minute, which
He,
is hard for both of us. So,
he works with me on a daily basis. He knows there is no silent.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm lucky he lets me control my own mute button. But at this point, I mean, I would think I would have like a big, like red, there's a red button there that I'm not allowed to
yeah.
touch.
The time delay. Mhm,
Yeah. Oh, oh yeah, definitely.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're discussing motion today. I'm
We
excited.
are. We are. So the project that is I'm using as the framework today is a dance portrait project, but I want the bigger picture is I want people to understand they can use this for any kind of project that they want to do. So we'll be talking a little bit about dance photography specifically, but the big takeaway I want people to have today is the framework with which to build a community-wide project and get some energy and momentum in your studio. So I've got a lot of photographers right now telling me that their business is slow. We tend to be, in my experience, we tend to be a little slower in an election year. It's kind of weird.
Interesting.
Um, it doesn't even matter who wins, but it's the day after the election that people start calling, and normally September through Christmas, we do 42% of our business in September through Christmas. So in an election year, it just starts a lot later. So I think there's some of that, and I think there's a lot of revenge travel still happening. Like our clients are off to Europe, and they're like off to Europe for weeks or months. You know what I mean? So I thought maybe this would be well timed for some people who may be feeling a little frustrated or a little scared, and we can kind of divert some energies into a project like this and start feeling better.
I love that. So we're kind of getting it's like a 2 for 1, but the underline is like re-energize your studio, your business. Oh,
It's like a gift with purchase.
I love it. We love free things around here. So I'm gonna let you do what you do best. I'm gonna do what I do best and get out of your way. Now you
Okay.
can tell me to shut up. I'm telling myself. I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna hang in the
Okay.
background. I will invite our viewers. If you guys do have any questions, Monica loves interaction. Don't
Yes.
hold your questions till the end.
Yes.
Monica touches all the bases, business, studio, creative, lighting, all that stuff. So I'm gonna throw it out. This is not Monica. This is me saying this. If you have a question about anything that you think Monica might be able to help you with, no therapy. We're not going there. We're going to keep it to photo
I,
and
I,
business.
I I can't handle anybody else's therapy. I can only handle my own.
We don't want to saddle you, but I'll
Yeah.
open it up for any questions during. If you guys have something, don't hold on to it. And Monica, I'll let you do your thing. I'll see you in a bit for some convo and
Awesome.
Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let me once again go to share screen, and let's see. You should be seeing the Sigmund Taylor logo, hopefully. Yes,
We
yes.
do.
Excellent. And then let me go back over here and get my keynote. And okay, perfect. So the Art of Motion is a project that I did during COVID, and I'm feeling the call to do something else. I don't know if it will be dance again, but going through this program and getting ready for you guys today, it really solidified the fact that I am ready to do the next big thing. So I hope that it's helpful to you guys too. Most of you already know who we are, but this is my husband and I, Michael Taylor. You can find us on Instagram there. These are our two dogs in our studio. I'm not going to bore you guys with our work or what our studio looks like. You can watch any of the other 4,200 webinars that we've done for B&H and see that. But during COVID, I had several clients who have children who are dancers, and they were getting so depressed because they not only weren't doing school, like live in person, of course, but they weren't able to dance either. And so what I found was that dancers were used to being on stage at least 8, 10 times a year. They do competition even more than that. So they weren't able to be out there, and they weren't able to dance together. So it was just a really difficult time, especially for that age group, as we know. And dance photography has always been something that has appealed to me, but I wanted to do it in a different way. I didn't want to do the typical performance pictures or group pictures before a recital or something like that. I wanted to do something very, very different. So if you guys have seen any of the other programs that I've given here about artist projects or creative projects, you'll know that I always kind of start with what's the inspiration. And I like to take this bird's eye view by just Googling, like I Googled, for instance, Degas, and then across the top, I click on the images tab, and that gives me the bird's eye view of all of the work. So of course, I still study individual pieces from him or other artists, but I find this bird's eye view to be really helpful to me to help me really understand what is it about the work that's appealing to me. Is it a color palette? Is it composition? Like, what's the common denominator through the work that is inspiring to me? And I always say we don't want to just copy or mimic somebody else's work, because we'll get bored very, very quickly. You want something that has your own stamp on it. So whatever you're using for your inspiration, that should be kind of just a jumping off point. So from there, I start collecting images on Instagram or what have you, and I start putting them together in Pinterest boards, and I pull out things that I really like, and I also pull out things that I don't like. So, so that's a good frame of reference, and I tell my clients to do the same. I am not a dancer, was not a dancer, never have been a dancer. So I don't know, or I didn't know anything about it. And I guess my takeaway for you guys at this point is, don't let that intimidate you. Don't let that slow you down or prevent you from trying something new. I dove into it like a student. I just researched, I read, I was online, I was looking at images, I was talking to the dancers. I had made arrangements to sit in on some dance classes before COVID shut everything down, to just observe and watch. But like many things, dance has its own language, its own vocabulary, of which I knew none. So so books like this, these coffee table books, were almost like my Google Translate. And so I could come to the dancer and say, you know, flip through this book, tell me the things that you feel like you would love to have a portrait doing, or that's in your wheelhouse. And you can see all the Post-its there. So different girls had different colors, and it's not, again, that we were trying to mimic just that pose, but it was a good jumping off point, and it was a good way for us to communicate. So it's like my little Google Translate. Also, coming to the project with that vulnerability, and just being able to say to, you know, these girls and guys aged 12 to 18, that I don't know anything about what you do. All I know is that I am a big fan, and I think dance is that perfect marriage of art and athlete, and or artist and athlete. And so I want to capture that for you. And I think that was hard for me initially, because our studio is really well known in our area, and people know that you know, we're the best, we've been around the longest. And so to come to the table and say, I don't know, I'm not the expert here, I don't have the answers here, help me, was a little scary. But that's the best age to do it with, because they're scared and they're nervous, and then they feel important and useful and helpful. And so it was just a really, really great collaborative way to work. And I'm convinced that's why the images turned out the way they did. So whenever you do a project, whether it's a project just on a small scale, like we've talked about before, model calls and something like that, which, by the way, we're doing another webinar on Thursday, which is lots of different ideas to get some energy coming into your studio. So that's 2 days from today. But whether it's a model call or a small project or something of the scale that I'm about to show you, the fact of the matter is that everybody wants to know what it's for. So they will ask you over and over, well, what are you doing this for? How are you using these? And so you have to be prepared with an answer, because if you don't have that at the ready, people can be a little bit more skeptical. They can be a little bit unsure of what your real purpose is for this project. Is it really something altruistic? Is it really to give back to the community? Or is it a way for you to try and get some sales on the backside of it? So I think that being able to clearly express the why of your project, as well as how it's going to end up, how it's going to be used, is super important. So I had decided that I wanted to do a dance project, and I wanted to have an exhibition. Well, when COVID became COVID and we all knew we weren't getting out of this anytime soon, the notion of having an exhibition in person became not an option. So then we had to switch gears, and I thought, well, why can't we do a virtual exhibition? So that's really how we geared it from almost the beginning. And I'm a firm believer in whatever you do, if it's a project or it's a new product line, whatever that may be, your project needs to have a brand mark, a name and a brand mark to make it feel legitimate. So for instance, this was the logo that we came up with for this particular project. So the Sigmon Taylor logo at the bottom, that's what we use on everything. And, but this is what we were calling the project. And at that time, particularly, nobody knew what a virtual exhibition was. Nobody had started doing anything like that. And so there was a lot of curiosity. And I will say, in case I forget at the end, looking back, at first I was disappointed we couldn't do an in-person exhibition, because I just think prints are always more exciting than digital replications. But if you have something you want to try and not go to the expense of doing a whole printed exhibition, this is really a cool solution. And I found that it became more accessible to more people. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But anyway, so this was the logo and the brand mark that we came up with. And so the first thing that I had to do in order to put the call out to get people to participate was I had to have an example of what the work would look like. So I couldn't just say, I'm doing a dance. I mean, I could just say, I'm doing a dance project, come and apply. But it's going to be much more successful if people have an idea of what you're talking about. So I called in a few girls ahead of time to make the samples that we would use for the open call. So that's what these looked like. So then this became what we showed all over social, all over our email newsletters, to say, this is what we're doing. So you notice that this is the original logo with the virtual exhibition. So at the beginning, we just came at this as the artist project, and this is what it's called, and here's the application deadline. So that's what we came to the marketplace with. And then that it would have the link, and it would take them to a page on our website that talked very quickly about why I was doing it and who I was looking for. And so it's very, very specific. And I think that it's important to mention here that photographers often make the mistake of thinking they can't call the shots. And so they think, well, I want them to wear this, but I guess they're doing me a favor, so I really shouldn't tell them that that's what I want. And I'm of the mindset that this is your project. And so when you have something specific, then you do get to call the shots and you do get to say, this is what I need you to wear. And in exchange for that, you're getting this complimentary session, a portrait credit, whatever it is that you're going to give them. But you are well within your rights to say, this is what I need from you. So, so we had a very concise but clear message here on the website of the age group we were looking for, the kind of dancers we were looking for, and that I was looking for small groups. If they were already dancing together through COVID, then I wanted to do some group portraits too. So we put out the call. I think applications are always very, very important, no matter what it is that you're doing. It adds, again, a level of legitimacy to the project. It adds another step that people have to participate in. And in our experience, the more time that people are investing on the front end, the more seriously they take it, the less no-shows you have, the more excited they are, the more they talk about it. So the application, even if it's just kind of getting basic information and you're going to take everybody, whatever it is, I still think it's really, really important to get the same information from everybody and to show them that you're organized and you've got your plan together. So so from there, we opened up applications for a few weeks, and I always like to say, whenever I do an application process, I always have a deadline, but I also always say first come, first considered, because if I just put a deadline, what happens? Everybody applies at the very last minute. So there's a limited number of spaces for a project like this. So I want the people who are really eager and excited. And if I'm taking 10 and those first 10 are the ones that are amazing, then those are the ones I'm taking. I'm not going to wait, and I'm not going to hold up progress for another week or 10 days until the deadline is up, if that makes sense. So I always say first come, first considered. And so then it's on to the actual shooting. And this is one of my favorite quotes. You don't make art out of good intentions. And so the only way that I've been able to successfully implement an artist project, or we've launched new portrait lines before, and the only way that I can make these work is if I sit down with the calendar and I schedule out the blocks of time that I'm going to use for sessions. So I did a new product several years ago, new portrait line, and I needed a hair and makeup artist for all of these sessions. I went ahead and booked her for 12 weeks. Every single time I knew. And so it was incumbent upon me to fill those times and not waste her time or preclude her from getting another job at that day and time. So when you put it on the calendar, it's a different mindset. And it's like, I'm shooting Thursday at 10 and I don't have anybody yet. I have to go find somebody. So, so I always recommend building that into your schedule. Subsequent projects, I've even had during the application process, I've had them indicate all of the times that would work for them. That's always helpful too. This again was during COVID, so everybody's schedule was pretty flexible, and that didn't become a problem. But on some things I've done recently that I know I've only had a few chunks of time to shoot, I'll put that in the application and say, please check all the days and times that you would be available for. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so once you start really getting into this and coming up with a schedule and figuring out how this is going to happen to get the images for the finished book or exhibition or website, whatever it is that your finished product is, then it's time to start shooting. And so for us, what we did was everybody whose application I accepted, I sat down on a Zoom meeting with and showed them kind of my vision for what I was looking for. I didn't have a lot of my own dance images yet, so I was showing them images from photographers whose work I really admired, and I could build out this mood board, which you guys know that I'm a big fan of mood boards. We did a whole webinar on that. But then I could show them these different looks that I was going after and have that conversation with them to really dial in what colors they were going to bring, what clothing they were going to bring, and to have a really frank conversation between me and the dancer and their parents that these were not going to be the dance photographs that they were used to. So I wanted them to understand from the beginning that these were going to be very, very different. And because of mood boards like this and those conversations, then I was able to create work like this, which I loved and was so excited about. And the girls were excited about, and their parents were excited about, because they hadn't ever seen anything like this. Their girls hadn't been photographed in this way. And this was an example of 3 girls who had been dancing together since like babies, like first grade, kindergarten, something like that. And the oldest, the girl on the left, was getting ready to graduate high school. And so this was going to be their last year dancing together. And obviously they weren't able to dance. So these portraits were really, really special to them. So as you're going through these shoots and working with all of these different subjects, this is the time that you can really hone in on your style. So remember, we don't want to just copy somebody else's work. We can use that as a jumping off point. But what I have found is the more concentrated your shooting schedule is, the better your results will be, because you're just coming off that session that you did 2 days ago, as opposed to 2 weeks ago, and you can't really remember what you liked and what you didn't like about it. The other thing that I think is really, really important is kind of culling through your images right away. So shoot the session. If you have time right afterwards, go through, we use Lightroom, and I just sit and I cull through and I look and I go, oh, I loved how I did this lighting and I hated how I did this lighting. And that way it's fresh in my mind as I'm looking at the work in front of me. But I never, ever want to do the next session before I've reviewed the session just past, if that makes sense. The other thing I recommend when you're experimenting and trying different looks is, before you make a change on set, before you move a light or change a background or what have you, take a pullback shot of the whole set, so that when you're in Lightroom or Capture One, whatever you're doing, you can see, okay, here's where I moved the light. This next sequence of images is where I changed the position of the main light. And then, oh, here's another pullback. And this is the next set of images where I used a black V flat instead of a reflector, what have you. So then you can really learn what you're doing to make the changes that you're seeing. So I just wanted to run through some of the portraits that we create, or that I created during this project. And what I found was that by taking money off the table, by making this really about the project and about the dancers, and not really worrying about what sales might transpire as a result of it, I was able to create work that I was really, really excited about. And I don't think I would have made had I been depending on a sale. So for instance, this portrait, I love this, but the mom may not. She might want to see her daughter's face. And if I had that dialogue going on in my head during the session, I might not have shot this portrait. And this ended up being one of my favorites. So I tried with each session to do something different than what I was doing before, just to try and keep myself sharp. And again, trying so many different things that the work still looked consistent, but I could figure out what I really enjoyed shooting after the project was over for paying clients. So just experimenting, trying some different things, learning the language. These were 2 sisters that were just beautiful, that I love photographing. And this was a group that had danced together during COVID. This was towards the end of the project. And you'll see them coming up. We shot a video with them. And the girl on the left started crying after I took the shot. And I said, "Are you okay? What's wrong? What have I done to traumatize you?" And she said, "This is the first time that I've been able to hug my friends and touch my friends." And so, COVID it's crazy to think that it's already been 3 or 4 years since then, and how much I know I've already forgotten about how traumatizing it was. But just getting girls in and dancers in to just do kind of crazy, cool things. This girl literally was flying, which was amazing. And a lot of them I shot with strobe. I get that question a lot. Some I shot with constant light, but most of them I was shooting with strobe. Now with the A9 III, I would do it completely differently, and it would be much less time intensive, much less tiring for my dancers, because that A9 III has the pre-capture. So by that, I mean, if I knew I wanted to get her at the height of this jump, then the pre-capture function on that Sony A9 III will start recording up to 120 frames prior to where you actually press the shutter. So as you press halfway to start focusing, it starts recording. And then likewise on the way down from the jump. So if you just miss it, chances are you've got it somewhere in those 120 frames before and after, which is amazing. So I was tiring these girls out by saying, I missed it. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. So I think the A9 III would have changed everything for this project. And the technology is just super, super cool. Just another kind of group shot here. Here's a brother and sister playing with fabrics. So just trying to get out of my comfort zone and forcing myself to do some different things. So for instance, this portrait of two sisters, the 24-70 is kind of my workhorse in the studio. And this was before the Mark II came out. So this was the original 24-70. And this image, I turned the strobe off and just shot with the modeling light. So shooting wide open, ISO 2000, and getting this beautiful, beautiful portrait here, and just a completely different look than strobe. Not right or wrong, just different. And so having done that in a project like this now enables me in paying sessions to know what the outcome will be if I want to try something different. I'm not experimenting on a client. Then switching over to the 135 and grabbing this shot by the modeling light, again, wide open. That 135 has this innate ability to just make that background so beautiful and really like a painting. This is straight out of the camera. There's no retouching on it because that lens is so, so beautiful. Here's the 85, 1.4 is another one of my favorites. And just the crop in on the right-hand side to show the sharpness there. And again, one of the reasons that the 24-70 is such a workhorse for me is that I can quickly grab each of these shots just by zooming in. So more importantly for me in my work with small children and families, I don't have a lot of bandwidth out of these little kids. So I've got to be able to move really quickly and get different crops and different poses without changing lenses, without stopping all progress and changing a lens and ruining the rhythm of the shoot. So that's why I default to that lens a lot. And but with the dancers, I was really trying to do some different things. So slowing the shutter way down, intentionally getting motion on this fabric around her, intentionally having her just slightly in motion. And a friend of mine who is a Sony shooter in Indonesia, when I was showing him this work, suggested, Monica, get the camera off. I shoot on a camera stand, and he's like, get the camera off of a camera stand and handhold it. Move around the set, get a different angle of the dancers, and add some motion. He's like, the images are good, but they're too sterile, they're too clinical. So I thought that was really great advice, and ended up shooting images like this, which then really became my favorite out of the whole project. So dragging that shutter, having to add grain in post because I don't get any grain on the Sony files. really kind of even moving my hand as I was shooting, walking around the set, and just creating these images that were, more mysterious and more abstract, and to me, much more interesting. And then these kinds of portraits took on a life and personality of their own, much different than the images I thought I was going to create when I started. So again, more abstracts like this. And the goal for me was trying to imagine what it must feel like to be a dancer, what it must feel like to fly. And I've always been envious of that skill set and of that talent. And so this is as close as I can get to it. And really just trying to imagine what it feels like. So, okay. So that's kind of the logistics of the dance portraits. But now I want to talk about launching and promotion, because you can do this idea with anything. So I happen to do it with dance. I don't know what my next project is going to be, but now I have a framework that I can use. So we know that you need a name. We know you need a brand mark. We know that it's best to do some kind of an application. We know that the more you storyboard and plan ahead with your subjects, the more likely you are to get the desired result that you're looking for. And we know that during these sessions, we should be experimenting. So, Derek, before I go to launching and promotion and all of that, are there any questions?
No questions so far.
Am I making sense?
You are totally, you always make sense.
Okay. So at the end of doing all these sessions, and I think I did, gosh, I don't even remember, it might have been 37 or 38 sessions. What I wanted to promote the exhibition was I needed plenty of social media materials, right? So again, thinking of if a museum or a gallery is opening an exhibition, they have those long banners usually hanging out in front. So they'll have the name of the exhibition, they'll have an image, and then they usually have the dates at the bottom and maybe who it's sponsored by. So my thinking was along those lines, but in social media, the vertical application isn't as easy, right? It's not as translatable many times. It's a little different now with Reels, but back then it was definitely more of a horizontal idea. So this became kind of the cover photo for our social medias. This became 3 images across a grid on our Instagram. This was the final logo, and just presented by Sony, and then the opening date, just like it would be if it was an upcoming exhibition at any museum. So then what we did was we made a video. We had some of the girls come in and we made a video that we wanted to use to really kick off this exhibition. And I think I need to stop sharing and then reshare with video quality. So hang on just a second. I always forget to do that. So let me go to share screen and optimize for video. And we'll go here. Okay. Now let me find my keynote again. So many screens. Okay. So I'm just going to show you a quick, I think it's like 45 seconds or 60-second video that we produced to announce that the exhibition was upcoming. So we started announcing this and promoting it in May. And so this was the video that we shared. Hang on. Here we go. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Hang on. Okay, so the goal, I'm back, right? You guys can see,
Yep.
you see the full screen or you see my,
I see. Yep. I see full screen.
okay, thank you. I'm second guessing everything now. So the goal became, it started as I wanted to learn dance photography, and it morphed into I want to support this dance community in a time where they're really hurting, like emotionally and mentally, because they're not in regular practices. They're doing practices alone in their kitchen via Zoom. I mean, it was crazy. And so it became much more about pouring into these dancers and much less about me learning something new for myself. And I think whenever you can create a project and it is focused on serving others, you're going to have much more success with it. So what I wanted to do was make the dancers the heroes of the whole thing, not me, I'm doing an exhibition, but these are the dancers who we're celebrating. So we have three major dance studios in our marketplace. And so we made posters for each of the schools to hang up, and posted these same graphics on social media that showed the dancers that had been accepted from each of the schools. So they were super proud. And again, just putting the focus back on them and providing lots and lots of assets that the students, the schools, and the parents could all share and reshare on across their platforms. So in addition to that, we made a profile photo for everybody that was participating, and it had the logo on it. So again, everything's consistently branded. Part of the conditions of participation were that they had to use the graphics we were providing them. We set up a Dropbox or Google Drive, and every week for 6 weeks up to the exhibition, they got new assets to promote parents and dancers across all of their platforms. And so again, just letting them be the heroes. And they were so excited and showing images like this that were different. And hopefully you guys are getting a sense of how clean everything was branded. So like any exhibition, we had an opening date, but then we had a preview night the night before. And if this had been a physical exhibition, then it would have been a beautiful like wine and cheese, and the artist walks around and talks to you about the work and all of those kinds of things, which again, because of COVID, we couldn't do. And so we did the next best thing, which was a preview event the night before on Zoom that I hosted. And so I could walk people through and talk about not really the portraits, but more about each student and what I learned about these students and their dedication to their craft. And again, making it more about them than me, talking a little bit about the photography, but the people who bought tickets to the VIP event, their family, they're people from the dance school. They don't, I mean, they're interested in the photography, but they want to see their student shine, right? So it was a really, really powerful event. And the tickets that we sold, after you put the ticket in your cart, there was a drop-down menu, and 100% of those ticket proceeds went to the school of your choice. So all the schools that had students represented in the exhibition were listed as an option for that ticket price to go to. So while I was disappointed we didn't have a physical exhibition, the nice thing about having this as a virtual exhibition was grandparents in California tuned in and friends and family tuned in, and it was much more accessible to many, many more people throughout, not just the opening night, but throughout the time that the exhibition was up. again, under the idea of making this about these dancers, we put together this quick little, wasn't even a movie, it's more of a video, and focusing on them. So let's see if this will play. So again, hopefully I'm getting the point across that this really was not about us. It was really about bringing a light to these dancers who had not been on stage for a year by the time this came out. And so we wanted to spoil them silly. So on the night of that VIP opening private party, we had each of the dancers come to the studio that day to pick up their swag bag, because we felt like if we had done this in real life, they would have had a red carpet and swag and all of the things. So so we had t-shirts made for them. We put together these beautiful bags. Each bag had each of the girls' individual portrait on there as their tag. We made stickers, we did water bottles, and then they all got a copy of the exhibition poster. And then I had them each sign my copy of it when they came. We put little tiny gift bags in there, little tiny cloth bags for their point shoes. We have our dogs at the studio, so this was a special gift from the dogs. And you can see they were so excited and they just felt like rock stars. And again, this was building them up and making them feel like $1,000,000. This was my poster that everybody signed, which I loved. And it's framed and hanging in my office now. And then what do? They're promoting it like crazy. They're talking about the opening night. They're talking about how they're going to have a party just amongst themselves. And so they felt like $1,000,000. It was great for us. Here's the people watching the VIP night at home with their snacks and their party and all of the things. And then the next day, the exhibition became open to the public. And so what I wanted to do is just show you quickly what that virtual exhibition looks like. There's different software out there now that you can use. When we first did this, it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. We could not find, it took a lot of work to find something, but now you can do it. And so again, and just trying to think of what would a real museum look like? What would a real gallery look like? Well, there would be an artist statement. So we have that over on the left there. And then as you, let's see, hopefully this will work. Hang on. Oops, wait a minute. Hang on. Sorry, guys. Let's try it again. There we go. So you can walk through here and it's a 360. You can zoom in on any of the images. There's different little rooms that you can go in. We collected the portraits. We displayed them in little collections. And then what happened was all of those black and whites that were kind of that experimental idea for me became a second floor. So a floor in and of itself, just dedicated to those black and white motion photographs. So we went through on the opening night and just zoomed in on each of these images and told like a little thing about each of the girls or their talents or something I learned about them or what have you. And then doing this exhibit and bringing that community together got us a lot of press, a lot of PR, a lot of attention, and now has really opened the doors for me to create work for dance companies, which I'm really excited about, and doing groups and doing them in a very non-traditional way again. So I think when you get the opportunity to try something different and play and experiment, then that becomes what clients want to ask you for. Up until then, clients don't have the imagination that we do. They don't have the visualization that we do. So all they know to ask for is what they've already seen. And so all they think that we're going to do is what the dance photographers from the recitals do, right? The white paper background or whatever. And so by, again, taking money out of the equation and by making this purely an artist project and being able to create work that was different, now people will hire me to do work like this and create something that's different, and they can tell the difference, which is exciting. So hopefully, all right, that's it for my slides, Derek. But I wanted to really drive home the point that if you're going to do a campaign like this or a project like this, you really need to think about all of the pieces and parts ahead of time. So for instance, the swag bags, right? Well, we needed the logo first, and then what was going in the bags, and then everything was branded, everything was consistent, everything was that Sigmon Taylor Art of Motion, the hashtag, the brand mark. I mean, it was on everything we could possibly put it on. And all of those things, having the assets change every week for 6 weeks in our Dropbox or shared Google Drive, and managing that expectation from the students and the parents and the dance companies that they needed to help promote this exhibition for 6 weeks. All of that was a truck ton of work, but it ended up making a really, really successful implementation. And so for anybody who knows me, I do tend to go overboard, and more is more for me, like the bigger the better. You don't have to go to this extreme, but I feel like we're creating the images anyway. So how hard is it to put a logo on an image and give that to everybody for their social media profile pictures? How hard is it to make the gift tags with those on there? You've already made the graphic ones. Now make the little gift tags and hang them on their bags. Make the poster for the school. Just get into that rhythm and do it. And it makes the entire project look much more legitimate. And it makes you yourself as the artist, your studio, much more powerful. And the dancers carried themselves with so much pride, because when they applied, even they didn't know that it was going to be as big of a deal as it became. I don't think I actually knew that it was going to be as big of a deal as it became, but it started to get a life of its own. But you want to position yourself as an expert, as an artist, and you want things to feel familiar in the sense of like how we had the banners and the opening night and all of those kinds of things. And so my hope is that anybody watching this webinar, maybe this will spark some ideas. And again, maybe it's not dance photography, but maybe, I mean, there's so many ways you could do this. You could do, tweens, you could do an anti-bullying thing, you could do, with, just individual learning disabilities, like there's all kinds of things that all kinds of little groups of people that we could shine a spotlight on and do a lot of good and rally the community together. I feel like more than ever right now, we need that. We need to love on each other. We need to support each other. And I think we get in our own bubble and we think, oh, I'm not good enough to do that, or my work isn't good enough to do that. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about what I was doing when I started this project. And again, coming to the table with that vulnerability with each of these dancers made it feel much more collaborative. They felt like they were much more important and a much bigger piece of it. And anytime we can lift young people up, I think, you can't lose. So hopefully that spark some ideas or get some people thinking.
Definitely. The goal is to get people motivated to kind of just go out and take their own idea. They might be passionate about something or have a cause that is near and dear to them that they can then turn around and do the same thing that you
Right.
did. Now, from a logistical and planning standpoint, are you looking at now? I know you're very like the business end, that's what you do. Me, I'd be like, "Well, oh, no, now I have a break and I'm already here." But by the time I get my feet going, the break might be over and it might be busy again. Is this something that requires people to know, "Hey, this is our slow time. This is, and this is about, I might have a month that's slow." Or is it something that you can pivot on shorter notice and kinda ride into, like, a longer term project? How
I
does
think
that
for
work?
sure. I think that's a great question. I think for sure, this was early days in COVID. We started shooting in 2020 when we knew we were all going to be hunkered down. And the exhibition went live in June of 21. So it was the better part of 9 or 10 months with really nothing else going on. Right. So for sure, we had that time to dedicate to it. Doing it again, I think that a lot of what took the time and energy that first time was doing it for the first time. Like, oh, wait, we should do an opening night. Oh, wait, that means we need an invitation. Oh, wait, that means we need a graphic. Oh, wait, that means we need a Zoom that can hold more than 100 people. Like, so you know what I mean?
You're
Like
just kinda figuring it out and piecing it together as you go.
we were playing defense all the time.
Mhm.
What I could now do, and I hope people watching this webinar could now do, is understand at the beginning all the things you can do that you're possible of doing that you should do if you can, and then measuring your time. Like for us, you know, I could easily do something in the summer before the fall. Like I wouldn't do this in the fall. I
Okay.
wouldn't do this in fourth quarter, but I could start planning now for something that I could do in January, first quarter, February, March, April. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or you could dial this way, way back and do a much smaller scale project and do it now. You know what I mean? It doesn't take a long time to get it up and running. You need a name, you need a purpose, and you need some kind of, I really believe, an application, which can be very simple. And what we did was we started shooting and then we stopped. I forget why. Maybe everybody went back into lockdown or something. It got more serious again, like that second wave. And then we opened up the applications again. So it can certainly morph as you need to.
Okay. Now we have some questions on the planning of the videos.
Oh,
Did
good.
you plan the shots for the videos? How long were those sessions? How involved were you in the video aspect? Was that kinda something where you were, like, super hands-on or
Yes, but I don't shoot video, so I had to trust the person doing that for us. And I knew the feeling because I wanted it to look like the work that
it
I
has
had.
to look on brand?
Yeah, it had to look on brand. And what was really speaking to me from all of those images were those black and whites, was just that dragging the shutter kind of. So our filmmaker kind of knew that, right? And so we agreed ahead of time that we wanted it shot um, in that style, in black and white, slow motion. And, it was kind of collaborative, but mostly I just was like, do do your thing. I want some individuals. I want this group of girls because they've been able to dance together now and do your thing. So
Now sticking with that theme of on brand, again, you're big into marketing, you're big into branding, you teach this, you practice this. When going off in a route like this, is it something that does it necessarily have to stay on brand? Like if you does your idea have I mean yours is like parallel. Like when I look at this project, I'm like, okay, this still looks like Sigmund Taylor. This doesn't look like who was this studio? Does it have to? Is that a decision that you believe it should stay with? You know, should you stay in the same line as what you do, or is it okay to kind of open it up a little bit?
that's a really excellent question. And I think that, for instance, I just started playing around with some high contrast black and white. Doesn't look like anything else we've done, but I want to do it. And I want to shoot more of it. And I don't want to not do it because I'm afraid it doesn't fit in with what we're already doing. Artists should always be evolving. Artists, true artists, are always coming up with the next thing. Their work is changing. So I think that as long as you're being clear in your mission and your purpose, so by articulating, listen, I'm ready to try something completely different. I'm coming to the table with something totally, I'm going high contrast, black and white, fashion, editorial. And then again, branding it, having a logo, having it by Sigmund Taylor, by your studio, right? I think it can dovetail into that. I would hate for somebody to not try something that they really want to try because they think it won't be on brand. You can dovetail it by being prepared and by explaining the purpose of it and the why of it, and the actual branding of it can fall in line with your studio.
And even if it doesn't, it's like I feel like as long as you're doing it, say you're doing it and you're working with a project, and if you're doing a cause that you're passionate about and you believe in, what's the problem in having a one-off? And it's like, hey, I did this. It's
Right,
completely,
right,
foreign to what I normally do and what my business bread and butter is, but it's something I believe in. I'm passionate about the work. It's
right.
a one-off.
And that goes back to serving others.
Mhm.
So this started as a I want to learn dance photography, and it very quickly morphed into, we need to pour love into these people. They are depressed, they are sad, they are giving up dance, they are like, they're just beside, I mean, parents were just, one of the things we did before the opening night was we sent a questionnaire to the parent and the child, and or the student, and we had them answer things like, what is dance, what role has dance played in your life? So those kinds of things, and then also about this project particularly. And we used that as a lot of the talking points for that opening night. And it was so interesting because the dancers were hearing things from their parents that they had never expressed, right? And vice versa. And so this project did so much healing that I didn't anticipate. That was not how it started. But if you can be open and really watch what's happening, and again, I always say, if you're thinking about the person in front of you, you can't be worried about yourself, and see how you can serve and how you can pour love in. And it just became very clear very quickly that this needed to be for them. And we were very proud to be able to be the ones to bring that to the community for them, but this needed to be about them. And I think you could do this, like I said, for any number of different kinds of groups to bring attention to a cause that is important to you, or a nonprofit in your community that is doing good work that you want to bring more attention to. I think you could morph this into anything like that at any point.
Perfect. And our final question here coming from Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, let me know if I'm butchering your question. Really the kind of research that you do when you're coming up as far as the marketing and what idea you're going to do. Are you looking at ideas that have been done before? Are you looking at marketing strategies that are going to fit within who you're marketing to for this particular project? Or can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I'm interested in the marketing side of things because I think if you're going to do something like this, you want it to be seen. You want
Right.
to kind of use this. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're using this as an extra arm of your business and pulling in,
Sure.
something
Sure.
something else that's going to keep you busy.
Yeah, and what we started with at the top of this call was many studios are feeling a little bit under the gun right now. They're feeling slow, they're a little stressed out. And so, anytime you can do a project like this that shows people that you're still busy, people want to do business with people who are busy.
Okay.
They want to do business with somebody that they're not afraid is going to go out of business in 6 months. But to your question, Elizabeth, what type of research ideas of how to take the photos? So that was just kind of how I talked about at the beginning, like finding inspiration on Instagram. I bought every beautiful coffee table dance photography book that has been published. They're all over there on my bookshelf now. I bought Dancing for Dummies so I could learn the language. So lots of research in that regard and lots of really being open and vulnerable in the sessions themselves to allow the dancers to say to me, that's nothing that we would really do. That pose isn't realistic or whatever. In terms of the marketing, I don't have someplace to that I could say, oh, I learned this from that. It's, I think, more of I've been marketing this studio for 25 years now. And so I have a, a skill set for doing that, and I really enjoy it. And so to me, it's about how can we get the most bang for our buck? So doing something as easy as profile photos or asset drops every week for parents, like they're then disseminating the information for you. By giving it a name and an application, it automatically is elevated to a certain status. Now people want to be chosen. It's not just like, oh, I helped them out by modeling. It's like I was selected, right? So those posters saying congratulate these dancers that were selected from our school, those kinds of things. And then just referencing very, very few times do I reference something that somebody's done in our industry, if that makes sense. Very rarely am I taking my cues from another photographer or another studio in terms of marketing. So when I was looking at something like this, I was really studying, okay, when the Met comes out with a new collection, how are they doing it? How far in advance are they promoting it? They obviously get that iconic hero image, right? We've seen that now with the costume exhibit that's out right now, which is, by the way, amazing if you can go. It closes on September 2nd, so don't waste any time. But that iconic image is then repeated for months. And it's repeated with the title for months. So then you start seeing it, and you're like, yeah, there's a thing. And I think it's a thing. And oh yeah, it's in June and it's a dance thing. And it's just like, you should be nauseated by your graphics and your taglines and everything by the time that people are just starting to learn what they are. Like, you should be nauseated. Like, they just have to be everywhere all the time and consistent. And so, so I apologize. I don't have a like formula or something to say, go study this, but hopefully this webinar can give you like a general formula to rough some things in and modify as you need to.
All they have to
I
do is
don't feel
just
like that was very helpful.
that was they just have to look up your catalog on the event space alone. I feel like I almost feel like I feel like I could start a studio. I'm gonna start doing headshots and family portraits and all that. It's like you have given us all the information, and
Well, I came up with, so my studio turns 25 next summer. And
wow.
I came up, I know I don't look that old, do I?
Not at all.
But I came up with incredible educators in our industry, and I've always been involved in PPA, which is the Professional Photographers of America. Anybody who's not a part of that, I strongly urge you to go to ppa.com. And came up with really giving, generous educators who were at the top of their craft and who just gave so willingly. And what I've noticed over the last 20 years is that now everybody's an educator, right? Everybody's selling something. And even more problematic, and I think COVID helped with that a lot because we started doing online learning so much like this. But I think that the problem is these educators that are out there selling things haven't been vetted. So people are throwing bad money after bad money, and they're just trying desperately to find who they can trust, who has been in the business more than 6 months. And I'm saying, like, it's hard. I really feel for photographers who are coming up now because it's much harder. And so B&H, Sony providing these webinars for free for people, it's like, I don't know that people who are just coming up realize what a gift that is,
Yeah.
because it's just really, really hard now. And so Michael, myself, many of the other Sony artisans, like, we just really believe in, like, we don't want this to all die with us when we retire, and
Share
if
the
we can
knowledge.
if we can save somebody some heartache or headaches or hassle, time, money, whatever. And like you said, we've recorded quite a lot, and we're pretty open about the things that have worked. So take it, run with it, go do all the things, be amazing.
That's what it's
We
here
also
for.
share what doesn't work. So
Yeah.
we have no pride. We're like, whatever.
How
This was,
much time do you have?
yeah,
I can
exactly.
share.
This was a disaster. Yeah, don't do this.
Totally, totally. Well, with one last wonderful comment and absolutely amazing project from Ray joining us on YouTube.
Oh,
So
thank
I
you.
agree. I agree. You always bring us something new, some good, lighthearted knowledge, experience, information, and you do your homework.
I try
Like,
to do
you're
that.
not out here just spewing, the age of information. There's so much
No,
information out there. It's a bad thing,
right,
but
right.
you do your homework. You share with us, like you said, you share with us what works, what doesn't work. More importantly, you've been putting this all through the paces. You're not just saying, "Hey, I read this somewhere," or I went to a workshop and I'm just regurgitating information. It's all stuff that
Right.
you're putting into practice.
And
And
in Thursday's class, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Derek,
no, you're good.
but I'm going to do it anyway. Thursday's class, I hate it when people do that. Sorry to cut you off, but
You're always allowed.
how sorry are
Nobody's
you?
here to nobody
Um,
wants to hear me speak.
so no, but I was just going to say Thursday's webinar, which I think is at the same time, 3 o'clock, and we're calling it Let's Get Busy, is much. So people were like, oh, how much time is a project like this going to take? Thursday, we're going to be talking about invitational sessions, model calls, like things like that, that are short and sweet, that can in some cases get some cash in your studio, but in all cases show that you're still being a productive member of society, that, whether you really are busy or not, you look like you're doing things and you look engaged, and we're getting that momentum into your studio. So that'll be Thursday's class.
Awesome. I need that one. I need to look busy all day in case
All
my
day.
boss is watching.
Exactly. Hi, Stephanie.
You were channeling Steph. It's funny. I was laughing when you were talking. I swore I was listening to Stephanie Gross and talking about, you're like, I don't, take cues from other people in the industry. I'm looking here and I'm like,
Yeah,
this is Stephanie Gross, like pulling luxury brands and seeing how they market, and some of the most
exactly.
successful brands that have these iconic campaigns where it's like, okay, you took a picture of a handbag on a seamless paper
Right,
backdrop, but it works. And
right,
that's like when I get decks from her on stuff, and it's like, is this like Bergdorf Goodman, or
right.
like you're taking your cues from people who have let them spend the tens of millions of
Exactly
R and
right.
D and just
Those guys have cracked the code. They have spent the money. They have figured out what appeals to the buyers that I'm trying to appeal to. So
Keyword.
why would I try and go figure that out on my own? I mean, and that's the thing. If you have a brand that's much more casual and lighthearted, and maybe you're not working in a studio, you're outdoors, the brands that you're trying to emulate or reference will be different than the brands I'm trying to reference as a boutique studio, very expensive, low volume, high touch. Like, you need to figure out which brands are the ones that you should be pointing to, referencing.
Yes. Very, 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 very important right there. You can take all the luxury brands in the world, but if that's not your market, then
Or your work,
yeah, or your work.
your attitude.
That's why I look up Temu ads. I'll
By
leave
the
it there.
way, Prime Days, I gotta go. I
I
gotta
know.
up
Yes,
with my
Prime
cart.
Days.
I gotta go.
You got a limited amount of time left. Monica, we will see you Thursday.
Yep,
I'll catch you in the green room. We got another great green room session coming. For those of
yep,
you who are not in the green room, just trust us. We get the icebreakers going really, really, really. That's why we always come on screen laughing. So
yes,
I will
yes.
see you then. All of you out there, check out our YouTube where we already pitched it to you. We tons of free information from Monica and everyone else that's great in the industry. So I'll leave it there. Monica, always great to have you on. A huge thank you to Sony, of course, for hosting, and all of our viewers out there. Take advantage of the free information. We will see you tomorrow on another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Catch y'all next time.